This is the story of a man called Ichabod Crane, and what happened to him one dark, dark night long ago in a place called Sleepy Hollow, one of the quietest places in the whole world. The only sounds ever heard in Sleepy Hollow were the whistle of a quail, the tapping of a woodpecker, and once in a while, when the boy went there shooting rabbits, the echo of his gun. But not many boys would dare to go to Sleepy Hollow. The people for miles around all believed that it was haunted. And at night, when the wind blew through the trees, witches wandered there, and spirits, and ghosts. Now, not far from Sleepy Hollow was a schoolhouse, and the schoolmaster's name was Ichabod Crane. He was skinny as a scarecrow, tall as a ladder, and he had a nose that came to a point like an ice cream cone. He was very, very strict. He enjoyed keeping the children after school on sunny days, and he liked nothing better than to rap someone across the knuckles with a hickory stick when they didn't know their lessons. Ichabod Crane knew a lot about many things, but the things that he knew the most about were witches, and spirits, and ghosts. Everyone loved to listen to Ichabod Crane's strange stories. What nobody knew was that Ichabod Crane believed the stories himself, and they frightened him. And the story that frightened him most of all was the story of the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow. You see, many years ago, near where the schoolhouse stood, two armies had had a battle, and in this battle, a soldier had his head blown off by a cannonball. Well, the story went that on the darkest, gloomiest nights, the soldier's headless ghost, wearing a long red cape, galloped on his black horse through Sleepy Hollow, looking for his head. Ichabod Crane a wife already picked out. Her name was Katrina Van Tassel. She was as plump and pretty as a pink cupcake. But what was much more important to Ichabod was her father's farm. It was the biggest, richest farm that he had ever seen. And he knew that if he married Katrina Van Tassel, someday it would all be his. Katrina Van Tassel turned up her pretty little nose at most of the boys. She only liked the skinny schoolmaster and one other, handsome Brom Bones. Brom Bones was a blacksmith, and every day when the children got out of school, they would go to watch Brom Bones making horseshoes. The children loved Brom Bones, and he loved children. He wanted to marry Katrina and have 10 of them. As for her father's farm, why, he never even gave it a thought. And Katrina Van Tassel couldn't make up her mind which one she liked the best, the clever Ichabod Crane or the kind Brom Bones. So, one dark, gloomy Halloween night, there was a party at the Van Tassel farm. There was music and singing and dancing and plenty to eat and drink, and everyone said that they had never been to a more wonderful Halloween party in their lives. Ichabod Crane wandered among the guests, thinking to himself, "Someday soon I'll marry Katrina, and all this will be mine. Soon I'll never have to teach those nasty little brats again." Late in the evening, when the dancing was over, and the women were cleaning up the remains of the doughnuts and cider, the men gathered round the fireplace, lit their pipes, and began to tell the ghost stories of which they were all so fond. And just before they went home, they called on Ichabod, who told the story of the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow, which was always the most frightening story of all. After saying good-night to Katrina, Ichabod got on his old horse Gunpowder and plodded off towards home. It was midnight, the witching hour. Somewhere, far in the distance, a dog howled. The wind moaned across the high hills, and all the stories of ghosts and goblins that he had just heard began coming back into his mind. The night grew darker and darker, gloomier and gloomier. Ichabod had never felt so lonely in his life. He started to whistle to keep up his spirits. As he passed the great oak tree near the Sleepy Hollow Bridge, Ichabod began to feel better. Soon he'd be home. But suddenly he heard a groan. His teeth chattered, but it was only some branches creaking together. As he approached the Sleepy Hollow Bridge, Ichabod's heart began to thump. Old Gunpowder started across the bridge. Slowly, very slowly. They were almost across the bridge when there, right in the middle of the road before them, a huge black shape loomed up out of the night. Ichabod turned the horse and clattered back across the bridge. The huge black shape rode after him. Ichabod's heart was pounding, and he rode faster and faster and faster. But the huge black shape kept gaining. Ichabod looked behind him, and he saw, silhouetted against the moon, a horse and a rider. The horse was black. The rider wore a long red cape, and there on the saddle in front of him, he carried his head. Ichabod kicked old Gunpowder to make him go still faster, but it was no use. The Headless Horseman was right behind him now, and then next to him, riding right alongside. Ichabod turned just as the horseman, lifting his head from the saddle, held it high in the air and threw it straight at Ichabod, knocking him off old Gunpowder and into a ditch. The only remains of Ichabod were his horse, old Gunpowder, cropping the grass in the warm fall sunshine next to a ditch not far from the Sleepy Hollow Bridge. And at the bottom of the ditch were Ichabod's hat and the shattered remains of a pumpkin head. But Ichabod himself was never seen in those parts again. Everyone agreed that Ichabod had been carried off by ghosts. Almost everyone, that is. Brom Bones, who married the pretty Katrina a few months after Ichabod disappeared, just laughed when anyone told the story. He just threw back his head and he laughed and laughed and laughed.